As there is with every offseason, tough decisions are going to have to be made. And one of those tough decisions is Kaapo Kahkonen, because he actually performed quite nice with the Devils, but was it good enough to convince Tom Fitzgerald to run it back with him and Jake Allen in between the pipes for the Devils? We have a lot to break down in today's episode of Locked On Devils. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Elliott scores! Oh, Stevens stepped up, nailed it. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play announcer, Devils writer for Pucks and Pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member, Trey Matthews. The stage is set for the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, and as we all know, the New Jersey Devils are not in it, and we're just a few days into the 2024 offseason. Obviously, people's imaginations like to roam free and wild, and we're going to actually do something throughout the course of the summer that I enjoyed doing last season, which is breaking down exit interviews, because as I've said in a previous episode, you can learn a lot from a player, see where their headspace is at, and you can start to put some narratives and storylines together. Last year, I started with Erik Haula. He said that the team was like his family. He wanted to work out an extension. He was discussing with Tom Fitzgerald and saying, like, let's get something done. And obviously, towards the end of the season, Erik Haula became a fan favorite. And I'm going to do something similar to begin my breakdown of exit interviews, because I know you guys want to hear from Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt, maybe Dougie Hamilton, because he hasn't spoken to the media for quite some time. The only person who did not conduct an exit interview was Jack Hughes, because he was already back in Michigan. As we all know, he's recovering from shoulder surgery. That's a little unfortunate, so we're probably not going to hear from Jack until later this fall. But anyway, let's start with an interesting storyline, which is Kaapo Kahkonen and his status with the Devils. Why am I starting with Kahkonen of all players? Well, Ryan Novozinski of NJ.com recently released an article talking about Kahkonen's final game, and it did kind of spark a debate on social media as to what should the Devils do with Kahkonen going forward, because he did actually put up some decent performances while wearing a Devils uniform. I think similar to Jake Allen, he exceeded a lot of people's expectations. And one of the biggest talking points throughout the course of the season is that the Devils needed a goalie, because the dynamic duo of Vitek Vanecek and Akira Schmid had lost their magic, because Vitek Vanecek was far removed from what he was last year, in which he racked up 30-plus wins, and Akira Schmid, he was the hero in round one of the playoffs for the Devils, shutting out the Rangers not once but twice. But that magic, it just disappeared early for the Devils, and that was one of their downfalls, and it was one of the things that people were a little skeptical about heading into the new season. Come the trade deadline, people were obviously wondering, would Tom Fitzgerald pull the trigger on a goalie? Because people were making speculations that maybe the Devils could get Jacob Markstrom, because it seems like he wants out of Calgary and he wasn't happy with how they were dealing with the trade rumors. Or John Gibson, Elvis Merzlikins, he held no punches back. He said that he wanted out of Columbus, and unfortunately, he's still in Columbus because of his antics. Maybe UC Soros, which I don't think is ever going to happen, not in this lifetime. It doesn't make sense for the Predators to move on from him, but that's a discussion for another time. Not only did Fitzgerald get one new goalie added to the roster, but he got a second one, and that was Kaapo Kahkonen, who I think was a very underrated player for the Devils. And coming from the San Jose Sharks, my expectations for him were anywhere from moderate to low, but I did give him the benefit of the doubt and say that the Sharks are a way worse team compared to the Devils, so his stats might be a little inflated. But before we break down the stats and I give you guys my thoughts, because That's what we're going to focus in segment 1. We'll look at some of his highlights. What did I notice from an optic standpoint? Then the second segment, I will give my thoughts as to whether or not the Devils should bring him back. And then in the third and final segment, he had a funny interaction with one of the reporters out in New Jersey, and it was brought to his attention that he was actually pretty good at making the high danger saves. Now, before I give my thoughts on the matter, here's what Kahkonen had to say to the media in terms of what he was trying to prove while in net for the Devils. Take a listen.
I don't know. I just, like I said, to me, like it was just coming in, and whenever I got to playing as good as I can, and trusting that I can do it. I know I'm very capable, playing a lot of games in this league, and that's what I want to do and be, and I want to be a number one goalie. And I feel confident, and so yeah, I just try to enjoy all the games I got to play and everything around here. So yeah, it was great.
The biggest thing I took away from that was that he felt confident as he progressed. And that's a big thing, because I spoke with Chico Resch about this back in December when we were talking about Vitek Vanecek. And the thing about Vanecek is that it seemed like his confidence was shaken up, because Vanecek was anywhere from mediocre to horrendous. It seemed like he could not get into a rhythm. And I think we all know for Vanecek, he wears his emotions on his sleeve every time he has a bad outing and we have to interview him. He always puts his head down. He speaks softly because he's ashamed of his performance. When I'm looking from a hockey standpoint, I'm not going to question his heart, his determination, none of that. But unfortunately, he just did not have it this year. And you could tell every time he had a bad start, it seemed to snowball into something bigger. And like I said moments ago, when Jake Allen and Kaapo Kahkonen joined the roster, I had anywhere from moderate to low expectations, because for Jake Allen, it seemed like the Montreal Canadiens were doing their best to get rid of him, and they retained half of his salary. And then for Kaapo Kahkonen, it's just like similar to Mackenzie Blackwood, his stats weren't really all that good. And speaking of stats, let's actually look at his final 5 games this year. Against the Philadelphia Flyers, he performed actually really well. He saw 21 shots and he made 20 saves, giving him a save percentage of .952. Remember, the Devils got shut out in that game 1-0. Then a few days prior against the Nashville Predators, he played less than 10 minutes because he had to come out due to injury. He saw 5 shots and made 4 saves. Now, going against both the New York teams, against the Rangers early on in April, in which it took center stage between McDermott and Rempe, he saw 41 shots and he made 37 saves, giving him a save percentage of .902. And then back in late March against the Islanders, he shut him out. And it was his first shutout in a good while, but the Devils won that game 4-0. That was the game in which Timo Meier got the Gordie Howe hat trick. Kahkonen saw 36 shots, and obviously he made all 36 saves. And then against the Coyotes, I was present. I was in attendance for that game. And even though the stats might not show it because he saw 15 shots and he made 12 saves, that loss was not on him. And the players backed him up in that case in the locker room post-game, because they even admitted, especially Curtis Lazar, that they sort of failed Kahkonen. And when Nico Dawes came in relief, he shut the door down, but it was just too little too late as the Devils got swept by the Coyotes. But anyway, those are just his game logs, and that's why it's brought into the light as to whether or not the Devils should possibly consider bringing him back, because when you look at those past 5 games, those are actually some pretty decent performances. Now, let's look at his stats in general. First and foremost, when he was playing for the San Jose Sharks, like I said moments ago, I think it's safe to say that his numbers would be inflated just a little bit more if the Sharks were a better team, because he had a record of 6-20-3, and he had a save percentage of .895 and a goals against average of 3.81. But when he came to New Jersey, the record might not show it. He actually had a good few games for the Devils, because he had a record of 1-4. That doesn't do him justice, but here's what does do him justice. He had a goals against average of 2.51, and he had a save percentage of .923, and he recorded one shutout against the Islanders, like I just mentioned, and that was his first shutout since the 2022-2023 season. All in all, I would say that Kahkonen exceeded expectations. And remember, after that game against the Predators, everyone feared, including myself, that he would have been shut down the rest of the year because there were limited games remaining, and it didn't seem like things were looking up. But I'm glad that he was able to get one more game in, because I think that game against the Flyers, despite the Devils losing in that game, I think it was still pinnacle because it put Kahkonen on a bigger stage, and it showed to Devils fans, it showed to the front office that he does have a lot of potential. But the $1 million question, is he worth bringing back, and do you run the tandem of him and Jake Allen? That's the question that a lot of people have, and I'm sure people have their own opinions on the matter, and we're going to discuss that momentarily. But before we continue, let me tell you guys about Game Time. I've actually used the Game Time app before to buy myself some baseball and basketball tickets. And here's the thing about Game Time. Last minute deals, save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. Save even more time when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. All-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout, and you can get a good view of your seat before you purchase it. Lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in ticketing industry. Like I said, I have nothing but good things to say about the Game Time app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Okay. Is Kaapo Kahkonen coming back? His original contract was 2 years, worth $5.5 million, which means he was paid annually $2.75 million, and he's about to become an unrestricted free agent. And he will turn 28 this August, so age doesn't play that much of a factor. Now, before I give my thoughts, here's what Kahkonen had to say about the contract discussions he's been having with Tom Fitzgerald, and he also answered a question as to whether or not he wants to return. Take a listen.
I haven't had any talks yet. No, I mean, it's too early. I think we're still doing meetings and stuff and everything. So we'll see where everything goes and yeah. So I'm not sure right now.
Is this a place you want to come back to?
For sure, I would be open to negotiate. It's like I said, everything was great here. So. But you never know. Like I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no, because it's just the way this business obviously works, and everybody has to evaluate and see where they're at as an organization, and where's the best opportunity for myself as well.
Okay, if I had to give my honest assessment, I don't think Kahkonen is going to come back, and unfortunately, this is where politics plays a factor in sports. Because you have to think, why did the Devils get him in the first place? Well, yes, the Devils needed some changes in their goaltending lineup. That was quite evident. But another thing you got to factor in is that Tom Fitzgerald is going to be a big-time hunter this offseason, in my opinion, because he knows that this team has a lot of potential. He even said it during his respective exit interview that he doesn't think that the 2022-2023 season was a fluke. He genuinely believes that this Devils team can go places, and I do agree to him to a certain extent, just because the Devils did deal with a lot of injuries, other circumstances didn't go their way, and who knows what this team can do if fully healthy, and if Tom Fitzgerald just makes some minor tweaks, which is maybe changing the goalie tandem once more and adding some more experience and grit to the defensive side of things. But I've discussed that enough in a prior episode. But focusing on Kahkonen, the reason the Devils got him in the first place is because they were trying to get rid of Vitek Vanecek, because Vanecek was signed for this season and also next season. So trading away Vanecek frees up that extra year you would have had of him, because it was clear, like I said in the first segment, that it didn't seem like Vitek Vanecek was on pace to repeat what he did last year during the regular season, which is being capable of winning 30-plus games. And unfortunately, his bad momentum has carried over from the playoffs. Okay, you're free of Vitek Vanecek and you got Kaapo Kahkonen. Is that the final piece of the puzzle? No, because now Kahkonen becomes an unrestricted free agent, and that frees up some money so that way Tom Fitzgerald could possibly get a big name player, whether it's on the defensive side of things or maybe a goalie. It's always a risk. No trade is perfect. All trades come with some sort of risk in one way or another. But in this case, I'm okay if Jake Allen becomes the backup option for the Devils. But the one thing that I just don't think is going to work is that if you have a goaltending tandem of Jake Allen and Kaapo Kahkonen, you're taking a big risk once again, because you essentially already took that risk with Vitek Vanecek and Akira Schmid, and that didn't pan out all that well. You even tried giving Nico Dawes some reps, and you overworked the poor kid into the ground to the point where it just seemed like his luck was running out as the season progressed. And keep in mind, Dawes had offseason hip surgery just last year, and I wasn't really comfortable with Devils putting him out there for that extended period of time. But going back to Kahkonen, it's just like, I think politics and sports, they're just going to play a factor this time around. I still think he has a lot of potential. I think he has a lot of upside. I think he proved a lot of the naysayers wrong, and he exceeded my personal expectations. And if this is the final ride for him, I wish him the best. But this was a chess move by Tom Fitzgerald to get a temporary fix, a for now fix. But nonetheless, I think Kahkonen and Allen proved why the Devils needed a change in their goaltending tandem, because both of them performed really well. And you saw what happened with the Devils. They were still in a playoff hunt come early April, despite everything that transpired, from the coaching change, being sellers at the deadline, the scandal back in January. The Devils were still hunting for a second position in the wild card, albeit the East is pretty weak, because I did not envision the Islanders or the Capitals squeaking their way into the playoffs. That was not on my bingo card. But digressing a little bit, I think Devils fans should be grateful for Kahkonen either way. If he doesn't stick around, he kind of showed the front office why the Devils need better goaltending. And then on the other side of things, if he does come back, well, I hope he and Jake Allen can repeat what they did to close out the year, because most of those losses, second half of the year after the trade deadline, not on Kahkonen and not on Jake Allen. I was present for two matchups in which I saw Kahkonen, like I said, in Arizona, and also Jake Allen in Vegas. And both times, those goalies were trying their best to keep the Devils in the game, but the team in front of them failed them. But I think it's safe to say that Kahkonen, he flowed really well, and he made a lot of crucial saves, and we'll talk about that momentarily. But before we continue, let me tell you about Monopoly Goal, a new sponsor over here at Locked On. We've all been there before, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime, and the scoreboard isn't looking all that good. You're feeling low, not sure you or your team can pull out the win. Boy, the Devils know a thing or two about that. That's when you dig deep. Lift your head up and say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much as my friend's money as I possibly can. That's right. The smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and biggest empire. It's Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do. Play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards. Make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball. Charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put your game face on, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. All right, so Kahkonen was asked this question during exit interviews about the saves he makes, particularly high danger saves. Take a listen.
What allowed you to have so much success on high danger opportunities with the Devils?
I don't know. I guess since you're asking that, I probably did have.
Third best.
Okay.
Third best in the league.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't really. Is that a stat or something?
Yes.
Or, okay. Yeah.
It was 912. Your high danger save percentage.
That's really good.
So, high danger means.
Slot.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Just I don't know. Maybe those guys just hit me and they didn't score. I don't know. Just positioning probably would be a key. Obviously, being in the right place, right time, not chasing, not opening up, holes too much. Just trying to be compact and trying to present yourself to the shooter. Be as big as you can. Because obviously, if you're in that slot area, you get a scoring chance. It's usually pretty quick, right? There's always pressure from the defensemen and stuff, so they have to get the shot off quick. So just try to be as big as you can and. Just hope that the puck hits you.
How do you view analytics?
I don't. No, I don't. No. It's I know it is a good tool like for probably the teams and the organizations and like your pre-scouting teams, and you can see a lot of information from those. But I just try to stop the puck.
I've talked about his stats. I talked about his future. But in terms of his playing ability, I think Kahkonen was on the same level in some way, shape, or form as Jake Allen. Because the one thing I could say about Jake Allen is that he just flowed really nicely. He flowed like a butterfly, and it seemed like he wasn't really robotic out there. And this is something that I talked about with who else? Chico Resch, who has experience, obviously, being an NHL goalie, and he provided his insight on the matter as well. And I think the same could be said for Kahkonen and just how he flew with the game and how he made those saves, and also talking about the shots from the perimeter and things of that nature. So in terms of ability, Kahkonen definitely helped the Devils in more ways than one. Ultimately, I think Kahkonen did what he was supposed to do, and now we just got to see how the Devils maintain themselves going forward. But let me know what you guys think. Are you open to bring back Kahkonen? Are you open to having the dynamic duo of Jake Allen and Kahkonen run it back for one more year? Willing to take that risk? I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts. So leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on a podcast streaming service, hit me up on my personal X page app at TreyMatt4 or the show's X page app at Locked On Devils. As for today's episode, that's all the time I have for you. Continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day in New Jersey. Go Devils. I'll catch you guys next episode. Thanks for listening once again.